Hi everyone, welcome back to my little corner of the internet where I talk about whatever I want, which is mostly movies and TV. Today, I want to talk about Alice in Borderland Season 2.
ようこそ最後のゲーム会場へ
Okay, so the new season dropped on December 22nd. 2 years, almost to the day, after the release of the first season. That's a pretty long break, like Game of Thrones level break, which is why I was a little surprised as to why there is no like season 1 recap on Netflix, but c'est la vie, I guess. I really could have used one. I didn't rewatch the first season before going in, so I forgot a bunch of stuff. But that's okay. I'm going to let you know now that the first part is going to be spoiler free, and then I'll go into spoiler talks later on. There'll be a clear warning, so no worries. But if you haven't watched season 1 yet, what are you really doing here? Like, I can't avoid not, talking about that season. So just go watch the first one, I recommend, then come back and we'll chat. It'll be fun. All right, let's go. So yes, let's dive in, all right? Since all the number card levels were cleared in season 1, season 2 starts with the next stage, the face cards. We start off exactly where we ended season 1. Our heroes, they'll now have to face much harder games and higher stakes, if possible. Like every game seems to be, a game to the death, and they are getting more and more desperate to figure out where they really are, and more importantly, how can they get back to their world. Overall, I think I enjoyed this season. It had good pacing, and I liked that it wasn't one game per episode, and also that we got to see games without Arisu and Usagi in them. Kinda. More on that in the spoiler section. The season is 8 episodes long, each about an hour, with the final episode being 80 minutes. So it's not an easy one-day binge, but it is doable if you really want to. Personally, I watched it over 3 days, and that was completely fine. I do think this season upped the ante regarding gore. So if you're queasy or uncomfortable about that, I would put that warning there. There were some brutal scenes, and they did not hold back at all. It was pretty nasty, actually. I liked seeing the relationship between Arisu and Usagi grow, and also getting to know a bit more about other characters. That was nice. And of course, I also very much enjoyed Naked Yamapi. That's just... That would go without saying, but why would I not say it, So thank you, Netflix. And yeah, was it his best role? No. So what? Sorry. Thirsting is done. Yamapi. The score was very noticeable, and mostly in a good way, I would say. It was very dramatic and elevated the scenes for the most part. The ones that I didn't like as much were in the sad moments where like the music swells and you're like, it's a bit too much. But also like sound effects, I mean, it's exactly the same as in season 1, but the laser beam that kills people, it is very visceral. Like you can very much feel it, both with the sound effect and the way that the characters you can feel it. It doesn't look fake, even though it's a laser beam coming from the sky and killing people. So it's very well done. Speaking of special effects, whoever did the special effects for Tokyo being reclaimed by nature, very good job. That looked so cool. It didn't look fake. It looked very well. It was very meticulous. At first I thought they made like diagrams or dioramas, but I think it was all CGI, which very good CGI, well done. So, props to you. From me, a person who knows nothing. Anyway, the only special effects I had a real issue with, and I don't know why it was a special effect. I don't know, do Japanese actors not know how to jump. There were 2 scenes in which we had characters having to jump or fall from a great height, and it was just the most like type thing I've ever seen. It was so clunky and very clearly fake. I don't know what that was. It kind of took me out. I feel like this season asks you to suspend your disbelief a lot more than the first. Not just with the situations, but with people's ability to function with the level of injuries that they have sustained. At some point, it really felt like they gained superpowers. It was a bit much. I think the ending was very satisfactory. I will, of course, talk a little bit more about it in the spoiler section, but I just wanted to let you know, I think the ending is very solid. So yeah, if you enjoyed the first season, you will enjoy this one too. Although I do think season 1 was better. If you don't want spoilers, this is goodbye for now. Come back and finish the video once you have watched season 2 and let me know what you think. Don't forget to check out my other videos on your way out. And of course, like, subscribe, and do all the things. I'll miss you though when you're gone. So for those of you who have watched it all, let's dive in a little deeper, shall we? I don't know why I'm doing all the hands things, but here we are. Spoiler alert. Let's go. So, I want to dive in deeper with some stuff that I didn't like. First of all, I really didn't like the King of Spades plot game. Can you call a random person shooting everyone and everything a game? All the other ones, right? All the other games, the number cards, face cards, they had strict requirements. You had to actively enter the game. There were strict rules and some form of time limit. And then winning a game extended your visa. This was still mentioned in this season 2, right? The visa thing. So how does the King of Spades game fit into that? No one chose to enter the game. There were no boundaries to the game unless you went to play another game. And there were no rules or a time limit. It was really frustrating. And ultimately, it didn't really lead to anything. It was just like this big challenge before the big challenge. It was just very there for the sake of being there. Then there was the issue of some of the other games. We barely saw any game from start to finish. We got 2 for Arisu and Usagi, or 3 if you consider the final game. So let's say 3. 2 for Chishiya, and that's about it, right? So 5 games total. That's not too bad when you count them out. So I guess I can't complain. I'll take it back. I don't know. We saw a medley of other games being played, and some of them had Kuina and Anne. We never saw them play a whole game. So I think one of the things I liked is also a thing I didn't like. I liked that we saw games without Arisu and Usagi, but it meant that we didn't have time to see all of the characters play the games. Yeah, let's go with that. Anne actually spend most of the season hiking, which again led to nothing, except for one amazing scene where she is in the middle of the jungle reapplying her lipstick, and you're like, oh, the power of a lipstick, you know? We don't know the last time she ate or bathed or did anything other than hike, and she needs to reapply that lipstick. Okay, you know, I can't say anything. I like lipsticks too. But yeah. Then we have Chishiya. I never liked the character. I didn't like him in season 1. He has one facial expression and that's it. And that's supposed to be like, he's cool and collected. He's the exposition and monologuing master. He's so boring. Completely deadpan the entire time. And I hate that his character is supposed to be all-knowing. There is so much guesswork that is disguised as fact in his explanations. It's exhausting and pretty damn boring. In general, there were a lot of monologues about anything and everything by everyone. It got to be too much halfway through. Like, let's get on with it. It didn't bother with the pace of the show because I think, like I said, I like the pacing. It dragged out certain scenes to be too much. I'm like, we could have focused on the game more rather than the swelling speeches about philosophy and life. Even with Arisu, like, we didn't really get to see him work the problems like he did in season 1. That was part of what was interesting in season 1, right? He's not particularly smart or fast or strong, but he does know how to figure out games and find the loopholes and read between the lines of the rules. So he has a good memory and can read, and, you know, it made things more interesting. Like, once people managed to calm him down from freaking out, he was able to work the problem. And here, it never got to that point. In the game against Naked Yamapi, they ended up winning not because he thought of something, but because Tata went full 27 hours on his own hand. He found the loophole. They would have lost. He wanted to try and get 500 points, but like, you never really saw him figure out how to do that until he was actually told by someone else, which was interesting. Then in the tag game, which he did with Usagi again, it was her. She did all the work, including giving the big speech about why you should all want to live and not be a slave to this particular game and whatever. Chishia's game solving, like I said, sounded fancy, but just relied on sheer dumb luck. And I hated that they brought back Niragi. What were they trying to do? Were they trying to make a redemption arc for a villain? Because that was not what happened. But also, why was he there? He did absolutely nothing. It was just annoying to watch. But speaking of Niragi, just because of his injuries, let's talk about the serious injuries that ended up being barely an inconvenience. Okay, we have, just for like a baseline, let's go with that. Tata died from blood loss in around 10 minutes because of his arm severing thing. But Akane, a new character that we get, who is pretty cool, gets her leg skewered, from which she removes the skewer, she falls off a cliff, she ends up getting her leg amputated, but then immediately after, she's able to use a prosthetic to the point where she can run, jump, hike, and kick with it. And we're talking about a span of maybe a month. Okay. Then we have, you know what? Then, keeping with Akane, she gets turned into basically Swiss cheese with like a machine gun by the King of Spades. And she's still able to crawl halfway across the damn street to Aguni in the end, and have the strength left to say she declines being a citizen. Then we have Aguni himself getting shot in the head and keeps going. Anne gets shot and dies, but then doesn't, but then does, and still comes back. Kuina gets stabbed so many times. She should have been dead, and in very vital areas too. Chishia gets shot twice and does not bleed to death for the entire finale. Same with Niragi, who spends the whole season spitting blood and basically indicating that he is already dying, but then doesn't. It was a lot, considering how brutal and violent everything was. It was a lot of serious injuries that did very little damage. I do want to give props for using the Battle Royale exploding colors. I appreciate that. I like a good, call back to a completely different movie. So that was fun. But another thing I had an issue with was how the Alice in Wonderland theme seems to have gone out the window for the majority of the season, to the point where I completely forgot about it. Or not forgot, but halfway through was wondering, wait, where is it? Right? In season 1, it was easy. We were introduced to Arisu, Usagi, the cards, and we even had a character called Hatter. And, the beach area seemed like a never-ending tea party. So that was all very on brand. But this season, nothing until the last episode where we got to the Queen of Hearts. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense that the main or the last game would be versus the Queen of Hearts. And then they also played croquet. So that was good. I was like, okay, good callback. But the roses were white. And it really bothers me. I know it's stupid nitpicking, but if you're gonna do it right. Or at least have a scene where somebody gets very bloody and like the blood pours on the roses and paints them red. That would have been a nice little like ding. But yeah, let's talk about that final episode and the ending, because I'm pretty sure this is the last season if that's how they ended it, right? And I liked it. I liked the ending. I think it made a lot of sense to have it be some sort of purgatory limbo where the reason for them to keep going is to actually live and survive in the real world. So I thought that was pretty clever. And I didn't mind that they didn't remember what happened in there. I actually think that's pretty cool. Well, not cool, but completely acceptable. Like they had like a little bit of a deja vu thing happening, and I thought that was good enough. Not just like this, the ending. I liked the ending, but also all of the finale itself, although really like stretched out with speeches and stuff. It reminded me a lot of Moon Knight, Loki, and then maybe even Lost. I'm not saying that they stole the idea from those, especially not Moon Knight and Loki, because they were probably filmed at the same time. But it is interesting how similar they ended up being. Right, the similarities with Loki were from the scene with the Queen of Hearts basically monologuing forever in front of Arisu and Usagi. She just talks her head off for hours and hours. It was like, Loki, Sylvie, and Kang, that scene that stretched out forever. And the part that reminded me of Moon Knight was the whole mental hospital scene, which was almost identical, really. Well, I exaggerate. It wasn't identical, but it was very similar. And it was very interesting to see. And I thought, like, they got me. That is what I want to say. With that Moon Knight scene, they really got me. I believed for the majority of the time. I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I agree with everything you're saying here. They threw me off. And it was only the insistence that he forfeit the game that made it fake, or made me realize, like, oh, you know what? No, that's not the real ending. So they got me. Props to you. So yeah, I really did enjoy the ending, or the meaning behind the games, if you will. I thought it was clever. I'm fine with it being like an asteroid hitting Shibuya. It's better than aliens, okay? I accept it. It makes sense in a way that I'm willing to accept it. Yeah, what about you? What do you think? Did you like the finale? Did you like the season in its entirety? Do you think it was better or worse than the first one? Would you like to see a season 3 of it? Because there was like that teaser of the Joker. What do you think could happen in season 3 if there was one? Because, I would really love to hear your thoughts about it. But yes, once again, I'd really appreciate it if you did all the YouTubey things, like, subscribe, share, and all of that. Trying to grow this little baby channel a little bit. And other than that, thank you for watching. Have a happy new year. And I'll see you next Monday. Bye.